That's good. So you can see my slide now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just start. I'll just start by saying why I might be qualified to, or I may be qualified to deliver this kind of guidance. This little lecture or small lecture is going to be about how can you prepare, study, and answer an open book exam. This is a generic thing about any open book exam, especially for adult learners. And I hope you get some benefit out of it. So why would I be qualified to do so? Well, I have a postgraduate diploma at professional level in teaching and training from Cambridge. This includes assessment. I was a distance learning tutor with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. I have a distance learning tutor certificate from Oxford Brookes University, training and instructional design and rubric development training. And I've done a lot of examinations myself as a student in my undergraduate and my postgraduate adult life. I'm an international assessor with NEBOSH for open book examinations and practical assessments for IG2. I have personally developed several open book assessments that were accredited by different international bodies like the American National Standards Institute, and I've been teaching and training and assessing adults for almost 18 years now, as well as publishing research papers in peer-reviewed journals in the same field. Okay, so I hope this gives you a little bit of confidence in attending this webinar. All right, so what I want to check here is why are open book exams best for almost all learners and especially adults. And just minimize this thing so I can see. All right. So employers want to hire professionals who are able to solve problems in the field. And I think everyone agrees to that. And this is a very important thing because usually closed book exams may not prepare you for this kind of thing. So you have to understand that employers want to hire professionals who are able to solve problems in the field. Employers do not need students who can memorize and recite information that is readily available on the internet, especially these days. Okay. What is the difference between students 20 years ago, let's say, and students now? Do we still need to be moving books? Well, if you remember, if you are old enough like me and or other attendees, and you remember that maybe 20 years ago, there was no internet yet that much like now. Maybe there was, but it was not that common. And people needed in their educational process, which hasn't changed. I think that the educational process, especially in undergraduate schools, hasn't changed for maybe 100 years or more, which needs a drastic change now, especially in assessment. People needed to remember stuff. People needed to have everything memorized, let's say, in order for them to recall it when it is needed, because they didn't have Google on their cell phone, right? So, but now I don't think that anyone needs to remember anything. We would better save that brain space in order to use the available information online or on our textbooks or whatever resources we have in order for us to solve real life problems and help improve our life and our workplace, right? So this is what I believe. Remember, for example, if you're a quality related employee, let's say you're a quality management staff, who checks your work? I think it's auditors, right? And all the auditors, for example, working with ISO have taken their open book exams for quite a long time. So the auditors who are checking you in the field actually got their certificate through an open book exam. So this may tell you a little bit about that those who are checking you and checking that your work is fine or having areas of improvement actually got the certificate by an open book exam, which is actually quite a long, difficult, and tricky at some point. All right. Remember that no manager in real life will go into your office and ask you to stand up and recite information. This is not going to happen. So they're not going to tell you, okay, Jean, please stand up and tell me what do you remember about the elements of the quality management system. These things don't happen in real life unless you have a very weird manager. Problem with you being used to memorizing is that in real life, you may have all the books and the resources of information you need, but still you cannot solve a real life problem. Why? Because you were not trained to do so. It was not in your training process. All your training was about reading, understanding, memorizing, and then just, you know, writing back what you studied in the exam, in the closed book exam, and that's it. Problem with you used to memorizing is that in real life, you may have all the books and resources and information you need, but you can't solve a real life problem. Again, we repeat that. Okay, there is a myth that says that open book exams are easy or easier than closed book exam. And I'd like to debunk this myth by saying no, open book exams may be the most tricky and challenging. It depends on how they are designed. So actually in open book exam, there is more work and more effort on the examiner or the exam developer in how to format the questions. As adult learners, you don't need a difficult exam, by the way, because a lot of people keep on saying that if exams are open book, they're not difficult and the standards will be lower. This is not educationally sound. As an adult learner, you need a challenging exam. You don't need a difficult exam. Okay? And an exam that mimics your future workplace challenges, stimulates you and tests your potential to grow. That's what you really need. And remember, in closed book exams, you may expect many of the exam questions to have the answers in the book. That's why it's a closed book. But in open book exams, do not expect to find the answers only in your book or notes. So do you still think that open book exams are easy? I don't think so. Okay, let's have a quick look before we move on to the technical side. What open book exams tests versus closed book? Now, in education, we have something called Bloom's taxonomy of learning outcomes. So usually, this tells us about different types of learning outcomes. As you can see in the diagram, if you can see the diagram, there are things that are known as lower order thinking skills, which is remembering and maybe understanding. And then you have higher order thinking skills, which is applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay, and the applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, those are the HOTS or the higher order thinking skills, which are usually tested by an open book exam. And you can see that it relates more to an adult working in a workplace and trying to improve or do research or evaluate or create something new to improve his workplace. An example would be, based on a scenario, evaluate and comment on the organizational culture. So you're not just going to write what is the definition of a culture or what are the factors that may contribute to a positive culture. No, you'll have to analyze the culture based on a scenario or based on information given to you. You need to evaluate it. For example, say what are the positive sides, what are the negative sides, and then comment or tell us how can we improve it, things of that sort. Okay. Remember, closed book exams commonly want you to remember what the information you memorized, maybe check if you understood it. But open book exams let you have access to all the information. No need to memorize anything, which is good, but you need to show that you are able to use different information to analyze and evaluate situations, apply your knowledge, or suggest how to solve problems. Now, we start the important stuff here, how to study and prepare for an open book exam. You actually cannot prepare enough just before the exam. This means that as a teacher or a tutor or a person who's been in education as a student and a teacher for almost 20 years now, in open book exams, if you try to wait and just say, this is easy, I'll just look at my notes and answer the questions on the day of the exam, it's not going to work for you, fine. I mean, believe me, unless you're really, really an expert in what you're doing and you've done it like 100 times before, which I don't think many students are. For open book exams, you prepare while you are studying. Okay, so you give yourself time to study. Let's say if your course is, let's say 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever the course time that you have. Let's say if you study a few hours every week until you reach the examination time. So during these few hours every week, this is the time that you also prepare for the exam while studying. Let's see how. Oh, yes, by the way, you need to study, okay? I believe you may need to study more when you're studying for, more than when you're studying for a closed book, but studying is going to be more fun. And we have a keyword for studying open book exams, which is research. So you need to learn slowly. How can you do research? And it's very easy now, because before, if you're trying to do research, you'd be buried in loads of books and printed materials and stuff, but now you just need your computer, laptop, or even phone and a good internet connection, and you just be buried in some tabs or browsers, online documents. All right, good news is you don't need to memorize. This means that you're less stressed and you may actually enjoy the learning process. This is just a picture of how do I prepare for an open book exam at some point. You can see that the arrows are pointing. There is an arrow at the books. So we have different books. We have different printed materials, papers from journals. you have a laptop that's connected to the internet and has a lot of browsers and tabs on. There is even a notebook that sometimes I take notes while I'm studying. There is a marker. So there are a lot of things that you need to have in order for you to prepare for an open book exam. Now, 2 questions that we should address today: how to study and prepare, and how to answer the actual exam. Okay? Let's start with how to study and prepare for open book exams. You need to actually read the material. So you have to understand that you need to read the material. You cannot just skip it and say, I'll just look at the question and then look in my book during the exam and try to find it. And this is not going to work, and it's not going to benefit you in the long run. So if you're paying money to be educated, try to get the most benefit out of it. So you need to read the material during your study time. So now we are during the studying time, by the way. We're not yet on the examination day or on the examination week. So you need to actually read the material, understand it, and try to find out its impact or relevance to real life work. So try to think, how would this relate to my future career? Or how would this relate to my current job or to my workplace or to my business? Okay? Are the notes and class explanations e-learning enough? So let's say, for example, you have course notes, right? All students usually have course notes, or they have an online program that has notes and videos. Are those enough in an open book exam? No, absolutely not. Once you are done with your initial reading and understanding of the main material through your notes or classroom explanation, you should start doing your own research, as we said, okay? All right. So from this moment on, all you will do will actually benefit you in real life work and not only in the exam. So try to keep notes of all what you find, because you will need it during your open book exam and at work as well. So I don't want you to see this as a temporary thing. Always have folders on your computer organized for every topic or element that you study in any topic or any subject in college, in a training program, or at school, because you will need to refer back to these later on in the future. Okay, example, if I will study notes and have an exam about the topic of open book examination in modern education. So as you can see, my lecture today, or my topic today, is generic. It's not about any specific type. So I choose to study open book exams in modern education. So if I'm studying that, here is what I do. I will read first my course notes, and I'll attend my lectures in a classroom or online, it depends. If I have a textbook, I'll try to have a look and maybe put some markers or marking lines in the textbook and see how the textbook presented the topic. Now I'm talking about a textbook. Textbook is a reference, not the course notes. It's a bigger book than the course notes, okay? So first, you read your notes, you attend the lectures, and then you read your notes again, and then you check if you have a textbook, if it presented the topic in a different way. This is phase 1, right? Next is I'll do my own research. Now I go online and use the keywords to check what sources relevant to the topic that I'm studying are available online. You can use Google for general search. You can use Google Scholar for papers of scientific journals. You can use YouTube for educational videos. You can use Amazon or Google Books for books, clearly. So I'll try to show you an example. Just need, so let's say, for example, these are my course notes. Marji, am I showing course notes now? Why open book tests deserve a place in your courses?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So if these are my course notes, so I'll go first and, I'll read my course notes. Okay, nice. Recognize collaboration. Tell students that you know their access. Okay, nice. So I'm done studying or reading my material, and I checked for a textbook. Now I'll go to Google. So if you can see here, Google, I'll just type my keywords. What are the keywords? Let's say open book exams. Okay, and then we see the results. Let's check. Okay, so I have, of course, on Google, when you type something like this, you get a lot of results, and it is sometimes overwhelming. So you need to check what kind of websites are trustworthy for you, because sometimes, let's say, for example, if it's a blog post, it's not very trustworthy. It may not count towards your references, etc. So I would look for something like this. This looks trustworthy. Why? Because it's from a university. So usually if it's .edu or if it's .gov or something of that sort, then it may be trustworthy. So I'd open this up. So this is open book and take home exams from, let's say, what university. This is an Australian university in Sydney. And it tells us about what are open book exams, what kind of material do you need to use, etc. So let's say, for example, I'm interested in this. I like it, okay, and I found some interesting paragraphs. I'm studying this topic. So what should I do now? Because I will lose this once I close the browser. So now I need to be a little bit organized. So what I will do is that I will open Finder and I will make a new folder, right? And I will call it Open Book Exams, for example, all right? So let's look for it, yeah. And I will open it here and I will create a Word document for notes on the topic of open book exams, right? So I'll open a document so that I'll be organized. And I'll take the URL from here, copy, and then I'll paste it in my Word document, all right? So this is the URL, and this falls under the heading of the element about open book exam in universities, for example. So later on when I need it, I can find it easily. So this is my heading, make it bold. And then maybe there are some topics that, you know, I like. So open book exams, so I'll take it, maybe I'll copy it and I'll paste it here to serve as a reminder for me. And then I'll save this under the name, I put it in the folder and then I go back to my search, right? Nice. So this is one way to do it. Of course, you can find Wikipedia, right? So let's say Wikipedia. Let's see what they have. All right. For example, you found something like this. Now, if you take something from Wikipedia and you use it as reference in your adult learning assignments in college or school, especially in the UK, if we're talking about UK assessments, it wouldn't really count because Wikipedia is not a reference. It's not a trustworthy reference because it's edited by members of the public. But what can you do? This doesn't mean that Wikipedia is not useful. It is useful for your understanding when you read. But what you can do is that Wikipedia users actually use trustworthy references. So if you scroll down in Wikipedia, then you can find the references of Wikipedia and you can follow these. So maybe Wikipedia author referred to a trustworthy paper or something, and this you can find, all right? So this is about Google and you can also, of course, get something from anything.gov if you find or something of that sort. All right. What else? We mentioned something called Google Scholar, and all fellow geeks would know about Google Scholar. This is Google Scholar. So what is Google Scholar? Google Scholar is a Google search, which is only or specifically for peer-reviewed journals and scientific research papers, right? So I would like to refer to some published papers in scientific journals. So I go there and type the keywords, open book exams, all right? And I'll check here, open book exam for non-mathematic majors, open book tests and students, Let's say I like this one, a comparative study of open book exams and closed book exams. Sounds fine, right? So let's open it. Usually you may not have access actually to the full paper unless it's available for free like this. So now maybe you can read it, maybe you can find a paragraph or two that you like. And in this case, I would take that URL because it's beneficial for me. And I'll go down here. Maybe we say that this is for websites, right? And then I'll go down and make a new heading and I'll call it research papers. It's just very basic way of doing it. And I'll copy it. And then I'll copy a little bit of the text that I saw that I liked. And now I know the title of the paper, and then I know how to reach it, and it is very easy for me to retrieve later on, all right? Now, if you're trying to look for videos, then we go to YouTube, right? Wait, where's YouTube, all right? So we go to YouTube, and then we type, let's say, open book exam. But YouTube is tricky. YouTube is like Wikipedia, sort of. So if you are on YouTube, so we'll type open book exam and we see the results. Now, YouTube is very good if you're trying to understand for yourself. So it's for your own understanding, for your further research. But to use YouTube as a reference, this is possible, but be careful which videos may be accepted and which videos maybe not. Let's say it's a video about news. So if it's a news showing an official government person giving a statement about the implementation of open book exams in the UK starting June 2020, for example. Then this could be an official reference that you can use from YouTube, and you can put it on your doc. Why? Because it's not from just a member of a public. This is an official news. This is an official government representative making a statement, so we can use that statement as an evidence, and we can refer to YouTube. Other than that, it would be best to use YouTube for your own understanding. So you can see here some very interesting videos, and I would say, for example, let's say which one has more views, or which one has more subscribers, or which one is shorter. It depends on what you're looking for, and I'll click it and watch it. All right. So let's say I like this one, then I'll go here and go back to my document, and I would make a new heading, and I call it for videos on this topic. I would choose this one because it talks about managing open book exams, right? And then I go on. If you're looking for textbooks, then you can look on something called Google Books, or you can look on Amazon, right? Of course, on Amazon, it may not be free. On Google Books, maybe you can have access to some things. It's right on Amazon. Open book exams. And we see what happened. Yeah, so there are several books. Maybe you're interested in this one. Maybe something is available for free on electronic book, or a sample or something that you can check, and you can go for that, right? So this is your own research. You try to understand the topic better, and you move on. So let's see, back to our presentation here. Now, before you proceed, you need to be organized, as we said. So create a folder on your computer with the name of the topic, and have a Word document inside that folder to take notes of all the useful sources. So let's say if your notes are classified as chapters or elements, then you talk about element 1, the topic, put the videos, put your resources, things like that. And you will use this during your actual exam, of course. This is the preparation phase. Start checking the results you found on Google, and check which ones look relevant and trustworthy. So we have two things here. Relevancy, if it's how relevant is it to the topic that you're studying, and how trustworthy is the source. Please note that you are looking for sources that you can use as references in your assignment. Blog posts, for example, or commercial sites may not serve as good references for open book exams. Check for results that are either from government or university websites, me.gov or .edu, etc. Or of course, if you have any other trustworthy resources that you know of. Wikipedia, as we said, does not really count towards good reference, but check the references inside Wikipedia. You can follow these. Start reading the few sources that you have selected. Now you have sources that you are okay with. Now start reading them and have a quick look at them first, and filter them by most relevant and most trustworthy. While reading, try to relate to the original topic and learning outcomes, as well as to your real life work scenarios. Sometimes you find references within these references. If you're interested, then follow them. That depends on you. So for example, I'm reading on that blog post or on that article that I found, and they mentioned another reference, sounds interesting, then I can follow it. Okay. Once you find a nice paragraph, as we did, or a set of bullet points, then you can copy that and post it and paste it in your Word document, as we said, right? For example, put them under the topic of open book exam in modern education, etc. Because in the exam or in real life, once you face a problem or a question related to this specific topic, it is now easy to go back and you are organized and you can check your notes. After Google, do the same as we said with Google Scholar. You can do with Google Books and any other trustworthy website. For example, if you're a quality person, then check the main quality website. If you're a safety person, and check, for example, the HSE website, the OSHA website, etc. For your understanding also, you need to check relevant videos, as we said, and we already talked about how can you use that as a reference. And you keep filtering them, copying and pasting, and try to limit yourself to 10 references per topic maximum, including few videos if available. That's just for you not to be overwhelmed due to the enormous amount of information available online. All right. To be more organized, you may classify your sources as books, research papers, videos, as we did in the Word document. A good trick now to do is try to imagine what kind of scenarios and questions may be asked by the examiner based on such material topics. So as an adult student, you need to always develop that skill. When you're reading the material, try to think, how could the question be like? What kind of scenario could they give me in this way, in this kind of situation or this kind of material? And try to work this way. But of course, if you have a sample exam or past papers or something of that sort, then it is much better because you will easily see how the questions are formed, what kind of scenarios may be presented to you, and you need, as I said, to develop that skill. Once you do this for a specific topic, if you have any practice questions or mock exams, start practicing to answer those. So now it's a good time that you studied. If there are some exercises or practice questions, then you can start to do that. Act as if you're answering the actual assignment or the actual exam, right? Okay. Ask your instructor in case something is still not clear when you're done. And now read the material once more from your notes and move on to the next topic. So this is the studying process, you can say. Now remember, you cannot do all that on the day of the exam unless you have a week or more to complete your assessment. The preparation is done during studying, okay? You will need to be familiar with the process we just explained in case you have, let's say, for example, some people would have an interview after their exam or a closing interview with the examiner. Just, you know, as a part of the process, you may need to explain to the interviewer how did you study and find your references for your answers, etc. I hope this part is clear because now I will move on to the next part, which is how to answer the actual OBE. Margie, are we good with the time?
Yes, yes.
All right. This will not take long, hopefully. On the day you plan to take your actual open book exam, it will somehow be sent to you or it will be downloadable from the internet these days. First thing is you need to do is to read it carefully. So read the questions one by one carefully and start. The OBE or assignment, especially in the UK, would usually have a word limit, you know, somewhere between 1,500 to 5,000 words. So it depends. And usually for UK assignments or assessments, the passing mark would be somewhere around 50% plus or minus. So always check with your school about the passing mark for your assessment. If there is a rubric provided, read it carefully and you must follow it. Not all schools provide rubric. Always ask your school if they provide a rubric. It helps a lot. But what's a rubric? A rubric defines what is expected from the students and what will be assessed. Whether for online or face-to-face courses, it indicates that evaluation will be done according to specified criteria, making grading and ranking simpler, more transparent and fairer. So the rubric is basically a guide on what is the examiner exactly expecting from you in every task or every scenario or question, so that you will not be lost and you know exactly the framework or the limits of what your answer should be within. Okay? So try to look for rubrics if available. If you have a time limit set by the school, you need to follow it. This must be known ahead of time, so check. If you have 24 hours or more, which is better, then I suggest you never try to use that full time because it's likely that you will end up wasting most of that time. So based on experience, do not say, oh, I have a week, then I need to, you know, enjoy and take that full week. No, it doesn't work this way. What's the best that you should do? In case you have one full day or more, I suggest that you take a maximum of 3 to 6 hours in total and time yourself to have everything done. So consider yourself under an exam that is being controlled by someone, but in this case, it's controlled by you, and give yourself a limit of hours, somewhere between 3 hours to 6 hours maximum. Okay, let's say you'll go for the 6 hours or for the maximum, then in this scenario, you need 2 hours to prepare for the answers. So 2 hours to read the questions, check your notes and make sure to visualize as we're going to see the answers. And then another 2 hours for writing, and then 1 or 2 hours for referencing and final review, which you'll be doing after taking a break. And yes, referencing takes time. So whenever you're an adult person doing an open book exam or an assignment in postgraduate life or in adult life, you must always do referencing and it takes time. Okay? Always follow the word limit, of course. For example, if you have 3,000 words limit, you are allowed usually in the UK 10% plus or minus. So the range, for example, would be between 2,700 and 3,300 maximum. Follow your school guidance, please. The amount of marks assigned for every question will help you understand how much you should roughly write for every answer. So usually in any assignment or any open book, the examiner will usually write that this question or this task or this scenario has, for example, 5 marks, this has 10 marks, etc. So let's see an example. If the word limit is 5,000 words and you have 100 total marks, a question worth 10 marks is 10% of the total, and you may give it roughly 500 words plus or minus. Okay, so this is good guidance for you not to get lost. Make sure you structure your answer sheet properly with clear headings, and you may use, of course, figures or tables to support your answers, but figures and tables must also be referenced. Okay? Usually the content of tables and figures and the references list do not count towards your word limit, all right? And I want to know if you know where to see your word count in MS Word or not. So if you're typing, I'm sure, of course, most of you know, but I have to do it because it's a lecture and I need to be very careful. So let's say this is a Word document. So where you usually go, you go down here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's right here. So it says the total words. So if I'm standing here, so it says 67 out of 71. Let's say I want to know only this paragraph. So I can just select this paragraph and then go up here in tools and select word count. And it will give me that the words in this paragraph are 56. Okay, so you can see here. So again, it's either from tools, word count, or you can see it down here. It will show you where you are and the total. So in here, for example, it should be 71 out of 71 words. Okay, so now I hope you know how to find your word count. And again, tables, figures, reference list do not count as part of the word count. Start by reading the scenario carefully. So if you have a scenario, read it carefully more than once. Underline or highlight the points you think are important or specific. So while you're reading, try to underline or highlight on the computer or whatever. And while you're reading, try to link the scenario in your head to the notes and documents you have prepared. So now I want your mind start to decipher, to link stuff together and remember, yeah, I think this topic about quality policy, I think I have a document about it in my folder in element 1, and I have some videos about it, so that's a good sign. During the first hour or two, read the questions and highlight different parts. And for every question, identify the topic it relates to and open up your notes of that specific topic, okay? Now you can see how your preparation phase is coming in handy. Example, if there is a scenario about education and exams in the modern world, if this was a closed book exam, so I'll just give you an example of how closed book exams would be. The question may be something like this: what are the advantages and disadvantages of open book exams? 10 marks. It's a very easy question. If it's a closed book exam, supposedly you memorize that and you just write it down. Well, in this case, it would be easy. You just remember it and write it down. But this is not the case in open book exam. Open book exam question in this case may be something like this: based on the scenario presented, do you believe the school should switch to open book examinations? Justify your answer. Now, whatever information you have in the notes, you cannot just copy it and paste it as an answer because it's not the answer. But it will help you make up your opinion. It will help you evaluate the current situation of the school, and it will help you decide and justify if the school should switch to open book from closed book and why. I hope you get this example. Note, it is not a rule that all questions are going to be related to the scenario. Sometimes the question may require an answer independent from the scenario, so it depends on the question really. Now you know this question is about the topic of open book exam in modern education, which is good, which you have a document of reference and notes saved during the studying. So first step to answer, you go back to your scenario and read it carefully, and then you need to check your course notes and materials, because there is a good chance that you can provide a good answer only based on the notes from the materials. It depends if it's a basic question or a simple question, right? But it is expected that you will need more sources. So it's time now to start going back to your notes, open up the documents and the folders and references and checking which sources may be best fit to support your answer. Okay? Once you have an idea, start to build a quick sequence or storyline, how your answer will be, and visualize the final product. The visualization here is very important. How is my answer going to be like? What does it look like? What's the story? Where do I start? Where do I end? Or how do I end? Okay. This visualization is more important than the writing itself. And once you visualize, then you write outline of the points, and later on you can fill up those points. Okay? This is a very important thing prior to the actual writing. You can make list of main points to elaborate on in your answer, because you're creating something here. This is an essay type of exam. It's not a multiple choice or a one word that you're going to write. So you need to imagine, what is the story here? What am I trying to say? So if I'm trying to say, if the school should switch from closed book to open book, then maybe I'll start by evaluating the current status of the school. check the opinions of the students if they are in the scenario. If not, then maybe I'll check some research papers that showed the opinion of people about open book exams, and then I'll move next to the next heading, which will be the justification of my answer. Why do I think this is good? Maybe I can say some of the advantages of the open book exams versus the closed book, and then I'll close by a quick conclusion. Okay, these are my headings, these are my outlines. Now I can visualize my answer. I can start fill it up with actual text. Okay, now you have the options to do the same for the rest of the questions. I mean that you'll do all the questions first, the visualization and outline, or you can start answering question by question. That's up to you. Let's say that you'll do this one, and now that you have visualized, so you'll go question by question. Let's say, start the real writing. This is how your answer must be like. So please take notes of this. Every answer must be logically structured with sequence, relevant to the scenario, as the question suggests, and supported by evidence from your references. Okay, so it must have a logical, so you cannot just copy and paste stuff, and you know, it doesn't make sense when you read it that this one should be above this one or this one should come first. You need to be organized. There is a story that you're trying to tell. So it must be logically structured, has a sequence, relevant to the scenario as much as possible, and supported by evidence from your references, your course notes, your research papers, your videos, your websites, etc. Always keep your word count in check. So don't go on and overwrite things. Always check below in your MS Word document about your word count. If you plan to use some text from your references, for example, students' impressions of open book exams, do not copy and paste. Now, if you remember that I said a while ago, copy and paste in the Word document, right? So if you go back here, you'll see that there is a paragraph here that I copied and pasted. That's nice. That's for your own information about what you're going to use. But if you're in the actual exam, do not do that ever, because this is plagiarism in any exam in the world. Okay, and of course, we're talking here about maybe UK assessments or examination. So this is called stealing in other words, or plagiarism. So even if you mention your source, you're not allowed to copy and paste as is. Or what do I do? Well, we do something called paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means you're rewriting things in your own words. And there are some, by the way, softwares online for paraphrasing. Just type paraphrasing software. Then it's not that you're not also trying to steal it, but put it in your own words. No, after you paraphrase it, then that's the time that you mention the source or the reference. I'll show you an example. In case there is a statement or a definition that you want to put as it is, well, in some situations, but keep this to a minimum, you may need to put something as it is. Maybe it's a definition or a statement that was said by a famous scientist or something like that. So in this case, we call it quoting, okay? And this means that you will copy and paste, but you need to put everything in quotes between like inverted commas and mention your source or reference and to show that this is a quote, and keep quoting to a minimum, okay? Remember that most schools have software that produce something called the similarity report of your work in seconds. So they just put your work on that software and gives them a similarity report to detect anything that you copied and pasted from any sources online or offline on their library. So let's say you like a sentence related to open book exams in modern education in the references that you have, and you want to use it as evidence to support your answer. Fair enough. So this is the original sentence. The sentence says that you found in the paper, open book exams are more difficult than closed book exams. And the source is a journal or a paper by Atif et al. Okay. So this is how you may paraphrase it and reference it. You would say something like this: exams taken under closed book conditions may have lower level of difficulty than those taken under open book conditions. And you put the reference between brackets, Atif et al. Okay. I'm very sorry about the dogs. I have a lot of dogs around, so forgive me. So if this is the original sentence, open book exams are more difficult than closed book exams, and this is the source, then you can write it in this way: exams taken under closed book conditions may have lower level of difficulty than those taken under open book conditions. Okay, and you put the reference. Please note that the same reference must be later on written in your references list. So once you're done, you'll do something called the references list or the bibliography, where you're going to list the sources. So you'll mention the source organized. It will be in text, so it will be cited in text, and it will be also cited in the list of references in the end of your assignment. Different schools require different formats of referencing. So let's say, for example, there is a style of referencing called Harvard, another one called Vancouver, another one called APA. So you need to check if there is a specific style. If they don't have a specific style, then just pick up any style of referencing and use it to your preference or to your convenience. Check your school references requirement and follow. Okay? Don't worry much about grammar and spelling while writing the first draft. You will proofread later. Okay? Always choose to type or use word processing. It's better than handwriting. Now, if you are done writing your answer, check the word limit and move on to the next question. Manage your time, and remember you have 2 to 3 hours for this phase of writing. Okay? If you are done answering everything, now it's time to take a break. So I'd like you to take a break, not now, during the exam, and stop your timer and go take a shower, eat, watch a movie. I want you to completely detach from your exam. That's, of course, if you have that kind of time, 24 hours or more. And come back after a couple of hours. We will see why. Now that you come back with fresh pair of eyes to read and evaluate or reflect on your work as if it's not yours, so you can fix anything irrelevant or out of the logical sequence. When you read things after a couple of hours of being detached totally from the topic, you read it as if it's new, as if you're reading someone else's work. In this case, it will be easier for you to reflect on it and spot any problems. Because, oh, how did I write that? Does it even make sense? Oh, I forgot here to mention the reference. Oh, this one was copied and pasted. I need to fix that, etc. Okay, so after you're done writing the first draft, first take a break, detach completely, eat, take a shower, and then come back to read the things for the final review. This is also a good time to rephrase or summarize to meet your word limit, because sometimes you exceed the word limit. Don't worry about it. When you're in the review phase, you can summarize that or rephrase it. Figures and tables must be referenced, as we said. Now you all done? Oh, not yet. Now it's proofreading time. How do you do proofreading for free? Because of course you'll say, I will send it to a proofreader. Well, this is not usually allowed by schools. It's also considered as some sort of malpractice. So you need to do it on your own. Now, it is not easy to spot always the mistakes in your own document. So I suggest you do something else. We open something called Google Docs. So I'll go again on, we're almost done, don't worry. So we just go to Google Docs and open a blank document. Just one moment. All right, so this is Google Docs. You open it. Oh, I need to be signed in. Let me open something else. Google Docs. All right. Go to Google Docs and you open blank document. So you can see here blank. All right, and I just want you to copy all your work. So let's say, for example, I'll copy this. This is my document. I'll just Control A and I'll copy the whole thing, put it in this blank document. Okay, paste it here online. There's no problems with that. And then from tools, go to tools and check spelling and grammar and click on it. Now, in this way, document looks good. And let's say I'll make some mistakes here. And let's say spelling and grammar. Yeah, so in here you can notice that change you who to you with. Yes, I'd like to do that. And you keep on doing this until it tells you that the document looks good. Now it's time to select it all, copy it, and go back to your document and paste it again. Now you have a good, at least, at least 80% or 85% properly proofread document. Okay, so go to tools and select grammar and spelling check and follow Google's corrections as needed, then copy the final text back to your exam Word document. Do not submit your exam or your assignment without proofreading, ever. Okay, that's both for grammar, for spelling mistakes, etc. Okay, it is needless to say that if you have a rubric, as we said, then you must make sure that you've met all the criteria required by the examiner to get the pass mark. Now you can submit your work I hope you all the best of luck, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Margie. You have the stage
Thank
again.
you, though. Okay, so do we have any question? Any question from the audience or in our Zoom?
Maybe they
Or
fell
even in
asleep.
the Facebook, yeah. I think they want to hear more closer and specific to what they want to hear, which is NEBOSH Open Book Examination, because they understand what Doc Sam just discussed now is the generic about the open book examination. Now, I think our students, because most of our viewers, they enrolled to our NEBOSH e-learning and they are in preparation for their NEBOSH examination.
Yes, Margie, but this is exactly what they are going to apply for any open book exam, just for the audience to be very clear about it. Okay?
Yes,
so
sir.
if there is anything specific, then I think this is the time of our webinar for Engineer Alice to take over and start talking about the specific related to the specific type of exam, right?
Yeah, to NEBOSH. Okay, guys, if you have any question, please write it down and we will try to answer after Alice. Okay, Engineer?
Thank you, Ma'am Margie. So good afternoon. Good afternoon, Doc. Good afternoon to our guests and participants and viewers. I would like to say hi also to our students, previous student, current student, including e-learning students. So thank you so much for your trust, support, and feedback. It's really highly appreciated. So I agree with Doc. Everything that Doc mentioned, actually, you can apply it for NEBOSH exam when it comes to preparation, when it comes to how to answer the question. So what I will be discussing is more on the exam itself, the NEBOSH exam, the before, the during, and after. What do you need to do? What are the requirements? And then we can go through a Q&A sessions if there are any after that. So let me just take you through the process, the before, the during, and after the NEBOSH exam. So since now we have a date, the first exam will take place on August 6th. So I know some of you will take the exam already. So what do we need to know about the exam? So first, before that, if you are registered for the exam, then you should receive 2 emails from NEBOSH. The first one is an email confirmation to say that you are registered for the exam. And then the second email will be an email giving you the login details for you to be able to access the NEBOSH learning platform. It will also give you instructions on how to access the platform. And in addition to that, NEBOSH also issued a guide. It's the OBE Technical Learner Guide on how you should navigate on the platform, what are the basic information that you need to know. So this email for the login details, you will receive this at least 3 days before the exam. So make sure you contact your learning provider if you haven't, or if you didn't receive the email within these 3 days before the exam. Why 3 days? Because that will give you time to be familiar with the learning platform before the actual exam. It's really important. So you can change your password, check the platform, be familiar so that you won't spend too much time learning about the platform on the day of the exam so that you can focus on the exam itself. Okay, so what else do you need? So of course you need internet. You need also a device for you to be able to download PDF document, by the way. You also need a place, so ideally a quiet place, a room suitable, comfortable for you to be able to take the exam, maybe for 4 to 5 hours or more than that. So you may use PC. You can also use smartphone, tablet, but for smartphone and tablet, there will be an additional app that you'll have to download, but it's possible as well. Okay, so on the day of the exam, although you can access the learning platform before that, on the day of the exam, which is August 6th, 9 p.m. BST, which is 9 a.m. BST, which is 4 p.m. in the Philippines. That's the only time you can access the exam question, download it, and read it. And you will also be able to download the answer template. They recommend you use that answer template. If you don't, you are still required to provide all the information mentioned on that answer template. So once again, 4 p.m. in the Philippines then on August 6th, that's the only time you can access the exam question and have a look at it. What else? So you have your answer template. It's an open book exam. You can check any resources you need, as Doc Sam mentioned already. Do some research, but you are not allowed to contact your instructor to ask questions about the exam. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to communicate with other students or any third party. You have to make sure that the exam, your answer is your own. Please note also that there's a word count, so that's 3,000 maximum, and there will be penalties if you exceed the word count. You are allowed to exceed, but not more than 10% of that 3,000 word. And as Doc mentioned, there will be the mark assigned for each question will also help you in defining how long the answer should be for a specific question. So make sure you don't exceed that 3,000 word maximum for the entire paper. If you do exceed, NEBOSH does say that the examiners will not read the exceeding word count. Also, please note that you can take the exam handwritten. If you choose to do that, you still have to consider the word count. So we really suggest you don't do it handwritten. It's going to be difficult. What else? Now, so you have 24 hours to do that. So you have access to the exam question, to the platform, 24 hours to complete your exam. But Doc Sam mentioned already on how important it is to budget your time effectively, especially when it comes to submission. Make sure you do not wait till the very last time to submit your paper. We don't want problems about connections could happen, so we don't want to take that chance. So make sure you submit way ahead of the deadline. What happens if I fail to submit, or if I am late with my submission? What happens? Well, you will fail because the paper will not be accepted anymore. So make sure you submit your paper before the 24 hours deadline. How to submit? Well, there's a specific space on the platform for you to upload documents. You may submit your paper in a form of PDF or Word format. If you do it handwritten, then you'll have to take a picture of your work and then submit it through JPEG or PNG format. If you do make a mistake, like say you uploaded the wrong file or you want to change something, the platform does allow you to delete or change or remove any file that you don't want to submit, as long as it's within the 24 hours period. There is also a size limit when it comes to the file. I forgot actually to take note, but there is a size limit, and it means that you cannot just submit a book. There is a size limit, there is a number of file limit for you to be able to upload on that platform. So once again, 3,000 word, make sure you submit before the deadline, 24 hours. Submission through PDF or Word format. And if you make a mistake, you can delete, you can change, as long as it's within the 24 hours period. Okay, what else? What's next after I submit my exam? What do I need to know? So after that, there is something called the closing interview. So now that you submitted, it's done, exam is done, there is something else, another step called the closing interview. Your learning provider will contact you and arrange for this closing interview. Remember, it's not an exam, it's not a test, it's just one of NEBOSH's steps to make sure that the work you submitted is your own and you didn't get help from any other person when completing your assessment. So your learning provider will contact you and arrange for that closing interview. Normally it's done through Zoom or any other application. The interviewer will be someone appointed by your learning provider, and this usually takes around 15 minutes. So what do I need to prepare for this closing interview? So again, you need internet connection, a device. You need also a room, a private room. Why? Because NEBOSH says that you are not allowed to have anyone with you during this closing interview. So during the interview, the interviewer will ask you to show around to make sure that you are alone, make sure that you will not get help from any other person while answering the question from the interviewer. So again, you need internet, you need a private room, and then also need some kind of device for you to be able to use the application. So during the closing interview, how does it work? So first, the interviewer will ask or you will confirm your identification. So make sure to also prepare some form of ID. Why? Just making sure that you were the one who took the assessment and not someone else. So confirmation of your identification. And then the interviewer will ask you, we'll ask about the room, we'll ask you to show around, check the door and things like that, making sure that there is no other people in the room. And then finally, interviewer will ask you question. Again, remember the purpose of this closing interview is to double check that the work you submitted is your own work. So of course, the interviewer before the closing interview will have an access on your submitted exam. We'll read it and we'll ask you also a question. There will be generic and specific questions focusing on your open book exam. It's not an exam, there is no mark for it, there is no pass and fail, and even the interviewer will not even communicate to you the outcome of the interview at the end of the interview. What will happen is interviewer will just submit a report to NEBOSH. If there are any problems like suspicion of malpractice, the interviewer will submit or mention that in the report to NEBOSH, and NEBOSH may do some further investigation. If not, then you will receive your result 50 working days after the exam. Finally, another question, what's the passing mark for this exam? Well, actually, NEBOSH didn't say anything yet about that passing marks. Since this is like a pilot run, our first open book exam, they haven't set up the passing mark yet for this one. So we actually don't know. Maybe in the next or in the future exam, there will be a clear passing mark, but for now, they haven't mentioned anything yet. So I think that's it, Mama G. If there are more specific questions, before I hand over to Mama G, one more thing. What I mentioned is just the main or the key information, but of course, it's very important for you to read the guidance provided by NEBOSH. If you're going to take the exam, make sure you read first. There are at least 2 documents. The first one is the learner guide, where you have information about the exam, the closing interview. And then there is another document, which is the technical learner guide. This technical learner guide will give you more information when it comes to the NEBOSH learning platform, how to navigate, how to upload document, how to change password and things like that. So make sure you read those documents before you take the exam. Thank you. Thank you, Mama G.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Do we have question? Okay, guys, if maybe you're wondering when is the next schedule after August 6, then we don't have any schedule yet as per NEBOSH. They said that once the August 6 examination takes place, then that's the time that they can decide when will be the next examination. Okay, so just wait to those who are asking. Do you have any question?
Yes, we do have one. There's a question. Dave Kenneth is asking, what if the document is not posted online? For example, a textbook or even a case study of a person, will it be valid as a reference? Maybe you can ask that to Doc Sam.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit of a tricky thing here, because there is nothing that is not these days posted online. In a way, I'm sorry, I'm having some noise. There is nothing that's not available online. It doesn't have to have an actual copy online, but as long as the textbook is mentioned online, for example, the ISBN or anything of that sort, then it should be fine. But if you say it's a case study of a person, that's a story. If it's case study that is not published in a journal or it's not available online in a trustworthy source, then no, it cannot be used. It has to be published, it has to be available. Not actually the full access, but some sort of reference to it that it's published and it's valid. That's it.
Okay. So just an input also to those who are planning to take their examination. Take note, guys, that you can take either your IG2 first or your IG1, not necessarily that you're going to take both at the same time. So take time for your IG1, and then once you're ready for your IG2, then that's the time you will enroll for IG2. Okay, for this year, we only have for your IG2, okay, just since we are not receiving any question yet about the OBE, I'll just proceed very quick with the schedule for your IG2 submission, okay? The IG2 submission this year will be on August 6 and December 14. So for August 6 submission, you need to register to us and confirm before September 18. After that, we cannot accept any submission. And the next will be on for December 14 submission. The deadline is on November 20. Okay. Again, for the next OBE, open book examination, is we will announce once we have the date from NEBOSH.
And for IG2 also, I'd like to also say that we have a very good series of videos on our YouTube channel. So maybe the admin could put the YouTube channel link or the videos link for IG2 so that you guys can review. This is available, it's full and available for free on our YouTube channel. And of course, for our students, you have access to the e-learning platform, full access there. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
There is a question. There's a question that says, I will be taking IG1 only. How many hours will be given to me? If it's for the exam, then you'll have 24 hours. I don't know if the question is asking about the exam or asking about the review. I'm not sure. But for the one who asked this question, if you're taking the exam, IG1 only, you still have 24 hours to submit the exam for the open book exam.
Okay, I'll just add, Alice, that to those who are planning to take their NEBOSH IGC, then they have the option now. I'm talking about the review, since Trainovate is offering for an e-learning. To those who are asking about the classroom, as of the moment, we are restricted by the government to to schedule any class schedule. So we don't have any schedule as of the moment. But again, we have a very good feedback in terms of our e-learning. So maybe they can try our e-learning.
Someone is raising hand to ask a question. Jeremiah is raising his hand. It's Jeremiah. So do we unmute them, Mamaji, or how do we proceed? I know it's okay. Okay, sir. He just raised his hand accidentally, though.
Okay. Now, to those who are going to take their open book examination, please, if you have a personal computer or the PC, just use the computer rather than using the smartphone or tablet, okay? Just to lessen the headache of downloading the app and reading the whole thing. So just prepare for yourself for using the PC, okay? And internet, that's it. So any question? Alice, those who, you're the one receiving several questions in the e-learning if they're asking question, and what are some of their comments or concerns? So maybe other students are just shy to ask question, but can you share any concern of other students or journey with their e-learning?
For the e-learning, there are not much question yet when it comes to the exam. So my advice, guys, is you really have to check the mock exam that we uploaded, because once you see it, once you try it, I'm sure you'll have more questions. So that's my advice. Or e-learning students, maybe some of them haven't checked the exam yet, or just are starting to have an idea about this open book exam now? Because before that, there are not much question actually, not yet.
Okay, Sir
Okay,
John, yeah.
Mhm.
Sir John, you have a question? John Tulipas. Can you please unmute po?
Well, while waiting, someone is asking if it's possible to send sample or scenario question for IGC1. Yes, we did. There is a sample question and it's also available on NEBOSH website. It's a sample scenario if you want. It will give you an idea on how does the exam look like. So it's available on NEBOSH website. For our e-learning student, it's also included in our e-learning package under the IG1 mock exam. So it's part of your learning to try to complete that and submit that. For IG2, there is a sample also provided. It's part of the package sent to you along with the form, risk assessment form that you must complete. There is also a sample risk assessment provided by NEBOSH. But once again, make sure you don't just copy paste the sample. That will be considered as malpractice. It's just for your information. The mock exam that's available for e-learning students, once you complete all the lessons for IG1 or IGC1, you'll be able to access that mock exam. And it's required actually before you move on to the next step.
Okay, we also have a question. Can we get a copy of the slides? I think he's referring to DocSum presentation.
Well, this will be, this video will be available on YouTube, and it will be available on Facebook page. So I think you can just refer to that at any time. And so, but if there is a specific need for the slides themselves, and the slides are shown in the video.
Another question, Doc, is are the question in IG1 will come out only in element 1 to 4?
I don't understand the question.
It's more on the coverage of the exam. Yes, the answer is yes. IG1 exam will cover the IG1 syllabus, which is element 1 to 4, but there will be a specific scenario, of course.
Yeah, but you need further reading, as we said, because in this new format of exam, open book examinations, unlike closed book examinations, don't expect to just open, because it's open book, that you'll open the book and see the answer there. You need further reading, as we discussed.